No, I first met Teddy some weeks before, when I had just finished my training, and either he was needing another co-pilot to go with him. Well, first and second pilots basically, but we became friends, and of course to each other we were co-pilots.
Of course, yeah.
We're friends and co-pilots. And so I met him first of all at Bryce Norton.
Right.
Not all that long, just a few weeks before D-Day. And this is probably why I am more attached to Teddy than the average two chaps might have been, because he was the older, the senior man, and he brought me along quite well.
Indeed.
He did indeed.
Yes,
and so that, sadly for him, but I got promotion not instantly, but almost, when poor Teddy was no longer. He was in hospital, wasn't he?
He was.
By then. And so we did wonder, when we were briefed eventually in September, about the 10th I suppose it would be, in September, about Arnhem, that we thought, oh, probably that'll be off too.
Yes, yeah.
But although we were a bit fed up with all this nonsense that was going on, at the same time, we were up for it. We were confident, partly because we'd had such a good D-Day.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, that I think we had a good D-Day because, you know, people did well.
Yes.
I think it's not boasting to say that we did well. And so we were very confident when we went into Arnhem.
So when you went to Arnhem, you took off again from Bryce Norton?
No, we went to Manston, because we had rather clapped out old tugs, Albemarles, and it was reckoned that they would be rather pushed to go to Arnhem and back again from Bryce Norton, towing a fully loaded glider, which was something like £13,000 or something like that. And so we moved to Manston. Manston was a very busy place, there was all sorts of things going on there. But they found room for us, and we tents to live in, and it was pretty wet, not much fun. Anyway, we were at Manston when we took off on Sunday, September the 17th, for Arnhem.
And the journey took how long?
About 3 hours.
About 3 hours.
Now, it was no distance, it was probably only about 250 miles. But you didn't go straight there.
No.
You went from there to there, to there, to there, and there was all the time picking up all the other chaps from other stations. So it took about 3 hours.
Yes, yeah. Yes, so you landed in Arnhem.
Yes.
And jumped out.
Yes.
And tell me more about what happened then.
Yeah.
What happened between...
Well, nothing very much. I don't know you can believe this, but this was, I mean, to some degree we had taken them by surprise. And we landed, and we got ourselves a bit organised and one thing and another. One thing that was a bit easier for us is the fact that at D-Day we had to take the back of the hauser off to get the jeep and the gun. I mean, most people know about that, I'm sure you do too. But we'd had 26 chaps of the South Staffs Regiment to Arnhem, so they all filed off, and so anyway that stopped us. We were pleased about that because we did have a certain amount of stuff chucked at us on D-Day, but of course they went out and went their way, and we had a fairly quiet time of it, wandering around. Some chaps obviously crashed on landing, and we were able to muck in and shift a bit of rubbish and help out, but generally we had a quiet time for the next few hours.
Yes. So you and Teddy, you landed. Where was Jack Pickles and Norman Walton at this point?
Where would they be?
Yes.
I couldn't tell you exactly because we'd all gone our way. From now onwards, we were in small numbers.
Yes. Were they part of your number?
Oh yes,
Yes.
the same my flight, 19 flight, 19 flight. Although 19 and 20 flights, we just lived in the same place and had the same everything together,
Yes.
and they were rather intermingled.
Mm-hmm.
So although Teddy and I were 19 flight,
Yes, yeah.
a lot of the chaps we spent our closest time to at Arnhem were the chaps from 20 flight. Not that that means anything really, but it was quite a time in history, if you like to put it that way,
course, yeah.
and yet it only lasted, what, from June till September?
Yeah.
And there's such a lot
But a defining moment.
that went on.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Yes. So the story about Dad and the German limousine, do you remember that story?
I remember it, but I wasn't concerned with it. I'll tell you why. Because at one time, when things got a bit hard, which they did fairly soon, and we were dug in, and that old limousine was just behind us, together with an odd Jeep that we'd aligned as well, and which had most of our, but between the two of them, had a lot of our gear. If you see some photographs of glider pilots in action, you might have done on the book.
Yes.
You know the book. Glider pilots were different from the rest of the other airborne chaps in as much as that we had Bergen rucksacks which we carried on our back because we were flying, and we had to jump out of, we had to stop being airmen and be soldiers, and so
Immediately
we couldn't
once you landed, yes.
change our gear on the battlefield. And so we had these big rucksacks that had everything in. Well, it was all very fine, but it wasn't all very fine really, because when we wanted this and wanted that, we found it was in that blooming rucksack,
Of course.
which after a few days had been stunked.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So this story went around about the...
oh yes, there was a giggle, wasn't
Yes.
it?
How were people telling the story at that time?
Well, not at that time. It was more afterwards. I think afterwards, later on, when we were back home, we just said, "Do you remember old Teddy and where he?" This, that. Now, Teddy was always Teddy.
Yes, yeah.
You know, it's your dad. You probably with respect.
No.
But to me and to his pals,
course,
he was
yeah.
Teddy. And in fact, it wasn't his name. Was it? Was somebody?
It was Dennis.
Edward was his
the
second
middle
name.
Yes.
Middle name. Yeah. So,
Do you have any other little stories about?
yes, I
your
have one. And
relationship?
it's this is my favourite one
Yeah.
of Teddy.
Mhm.
I told you that when we first landed there, things were quiet, but it didn't take all that long to hot up. And all this is very well known. I'm sure you know a lot about it. And we were just a couple of hundred. We dug in, and it wasn't really like World War I trenches, which were very possibly elaborate with duck boards and things like that. You at this certain point you think, blow me, you better dig in. I think here we dig, and we did, and we were a couple of, again you see Teddy and I, that's sort of the bond, because they would usually slit trenches for two. There's two pals, the two pilots together, and this was the case there. And things really did get a bit hot, and there was a minute or two's peace between mortaring. It was the moaning minis we hated most of all, because they went like that and they dropped on you. And when you were in your slit trench and you had possibly a tank firing at you, his shot went like that,
horizontally.
the chance went over your head.
Yeah.
But these things like that.
Directly
Anyway,
from
it was a
above.
quiet spell. And the tanks were roaming around, but not fancying at this stage getting right close up, because we've still got some means of protecting ourselves, 6-pounder gun and thing there. But Teddy and I had just got our old-fashioned type rifles in our hands, you see. And suddenly Teddy said, "What's that?" And the tanks make an awful squeak, the tracks make an awful squeaking noise. It doesn't sound very ominous at all, but my gum ears, if you're there, I tell you. And I said, "It's a tank, Teddy." As much as to say, "Come on, steady."
Steady Teddy.
I think Teddy was the more adventurous one. I was solid. I was solid. He was adventurous. And he said, "Tank, yes," he said. "It's a tank, all right." He said, "Let's go and get it." So I said, "What?" He repeated his question. I said, Teddy, haven't we got enough trouble here without going and chasing a blooming great big tank with just rifles in their hands? Please yourself, he says, somewhat irritated. So I thought, well, that'll be the last I see of Teddy, I'm quite sure.
So you went off in pursuit
So,
of this tank?
You know, he went off and he didn't get anybody else to go with him. Not unreasonably.
Well, understandably.
Anyway, about half an hour later, he came slumping in, sat down in the slit trench. Well, I said, it had gone time I got there, he said, most irritably. And that was a good blessing, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
You had him another 60 years after that, didn't you?
Yeah.
You certainly wouldn't have done. I mean,
I
you
wouldn't
hadn't
be here. Yeah.
What chances?
Yes.
One little lad
Yeah.
with a rifle against a tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how did he mean to try and capture the tank?
How?
How did he mean to do it? How did he think he might succeed?
Oh, well, one way, of course, is that if a tank commander commands his tank properly, he really has to have his head out of the turret. And I expect he thought that if he, if he got the tank commander, he might have thrown things into some disarray.
Yeah.
The chaps in the tank wondering what they're going to do next. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Later on, Dad was injured, and Norman and Jack carried him across the river.
Yes, that's right.
Where were you at this point?
Now go back a short while. We knew things were pretty grim, but we hoped that we'd get out of it all right.
Yes.
We didn't know how, did we?
Yes.
And so other people knew more than we did, and the word came round that we were going to pull out. Well, we thought at least we're not going to have to chuck it in. Bit of luck, we're going to get out of it without having to surrender.
Yes.
And so we had to go from where we were, which was in Oosterbeek, down to the river bank, where hopefully we would be picked up by some little boats that had come along so far, and that sort of happened, of course, in due course. But we all had our jobs allocated to us. Teddy was one of those who was standing by the white tape.
That's right, yes.
That sees people down to the
To
river.
the river, yes, yeah.
I was put in charge of half a dozen poles, and we didn't understand each other the least bit, but but we followed each other, and we got across the river.
Yes.
All right.
So at what point was Dad injured?
Dad was injured as we were coming down. Chaps were filing down past him to go to the river.
I see.
You see?
Yes.
And I don't know, because I didn't know after I
You'd already passed that point.
after I must have done, because I didn't see him. Well, I might not, of course. They might have carried him off by then.
Yes.
But anyway, I didn't see him, and from that moment, sadly, however near we went to it later, many years later. Yes, and anyway, but I did know Jack Pickles and Sam Wellard, who was his co-pilot, and John Hebden and Norman Wharton they were two pilots together.
Yes.
And what it is now documented what happened. We saw them across the river. And no, I didn't.
That was the last time
That was the last Teddy.
Yeah.
Quite a momentous 4 months would have been in between.
I'm sure,
yeah.
So you came back to England after that?
Yes.
Were you still in contact with Jack Pickles?
Yes, only as another person
Yes.
in the squadron sort of thing, but I did leave, as I mentioned earlier, because I went off on another training course, 2 or 3 training courses, and emerged as a Top Gun.
Yes.
Laughing.
So you'd heard what happened to Dad through Jack, or was it just kind of common knowledge?
No, I kept asking what happened. Somebody vaguely said, well, they thought he was wounded, but they thought he was brought to this country.
Yeah.
And Jack Pickles, of course, and we were, although we were close, like being in the same class at school, if you like, you don't necessarily know everything about everybody else. And probably, because everything that did go on, Jack Pickles probably didn't think that it was, you know, that I particularly knew or wanted to know what had gone on, whereas I'd been desperate to know.
Yes,
Yeah. And of course I did leave them shortly afterwards to go,
of course,
go on these courses.
But you had tried to find Teddy in the subsequent
yes,
years.
yes, nobody seemed to know. No, the army, I mean, I tried, most of all you realise that, of course, while the war was actually on, you know, whilst you would be concerned about a friend, it was happening everywhere, and so, you know, it wasn't...
Not the time.
No, it was only when I was back again in civilian life, you know, and you used to think, well, what happened to dear old Teddy?
So when you found him 60 odd years later, what did you think?
Oh, I thought it was wonderful, really. Yes, we had a lovely chat for about half an hour on the phone, and of course, had we known that he wasn't going to live much longer, I'm sure we would have made an earlier date to meet. But we were only talking of about 3 or 4 weeks when there was to be an association, Glider Pilot Regiment Association meeting at I can't think of the place now. Anyway, and there we arranged to meet, and it seemed perfectly reasonable, didn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And then of course it was when I saw you for the first time, and you said sorry, but Teddy's sadly gone.
Yes, we did have a long letter from Jack Pickles.
Yes.
Just before he died.
Did you?
Yes, and my brother had a letter from Norman Walton in
South
South
Africa. Yes.
Yeah, interesting, these connections, these threads.
Yes.
Yeah, just fascinating.
Yes. Oh, he was a great lad, Teddy. He was up for it too.
Yeah. He was generally well liked.
Oh yes, yes. You were well liked really, because you were in trouble together, and it makes you much closer than you might have been in normal time.
Yeah. Certainly that situation intensifies your experiences, your emotions.
Oh yes. Yes, that's right. Yes, I had more than one meal out of dear old Teddy trying to destroy the Tiger tank with a rifle.